Here's what I'd like to do. I'd like to just take about 10 or 15 minutes. I've got some prepared remarks, and then I'd be open to any questions at all from any of the media that's here or any of the citizens that are here. For the second year in a row, we've denied a real estate tax decrease for the citizens of Roanoke County. However, over the same 2 years, we've increased the size of government by about $8 million. Now, Roanoke County government continues to boast of a balanced budget, while its citizens shoulder a $190 million debt. I think it's time for Roanoke County government to live within its means. We cannot keep doing the same thing and expect that the results are going to be any different. We need to change the way our local county government looks at spending the citizens' money. Now, I bring up this issue, and now I want to offer an alternative to help reduce the size of government and put us on a plan to get out of debt. And I hope today's press conference is really just the start of a dialogue. We don't vote on this until May 26th, so it's time to have a dialogue in Roanoke County on what we want to do. And I hope that all homes and businesses in the Roanoke County will engage in this conversation because it affects us all. I am very concerned for our county, just as I am our state and our federal government. We continue on the same path of spending and debt, and for some reason, we think miraculously things are going to change for the better. When I ran for office in 2013, most citizens did not even know that Roanoke County was $200 million in debt. They had to hear it from an outsider telling them. Now, this is because it's just not something that's talked about. Why would elected officials that had put us into this debt tell the citizens what they'd done? The citizens of Roanoke County assume that when we say we have a balanced budget, that this means that we are living within our means and not borrowing money. Currently, our debt is about $190 million, and it will continue to go down for the short term because a promise has been made to the citizens of Roanoke County that we're not going to borrow any more money for the next 2 years. Now, the citizens of Roanoke County should know that their local government has been on basically an automatic debt pilot for many years. We borrow automatically $10 million every year. So the promise that the county we've made is that we're not going to borrow it for 2 years. So we're going to stop this. However, this is also a little deceptive because the fact is we're not going to borrow it for the next 2 fiscal years, but then after that, in the following fiscal years, we're going to double up on the debt, and we're actually going to borrow more than we normally would. Here's a document that we had from the county meeting the other night, last week, that shows that we're not going to add $10 million a year for the next 2 years, but in the third year, we're going to add $24 million, and in the fourth year, we're going to add $15 million. So basically, we're right back to the same position that we were before, because we really are not getting out of debt. We're just postponing it. The borrowing of money needs to stop. Now, I'll tell you something. I never tell people to do something I'm not willing to do myself. From my own personal experience of getting out of debt, house debt, car debt, everything, there is freedom and real buying power in debt-free living. Your decisions then have to be sharper, and you only take on the projects that are important and that you can complete. I want to put forth a plan that Roanoke County each year put forth money into a fund that's used for capital projects. We kind of do that now. We have a great start. We have a $20 million plus unappropriated fund balance that we have right now. I would suggest that instead of continuing to borrow, we, out of the money we already have and that we get from the citizens, take a portion of that and put that into that fund. And then when we need a school, when we need a building of some sort, when we need something, we take money out of that fund. And that will force all of us to have to really think about what the most important project is. You know, the fact is we have a lot of projects around the county that we all want to do, and I think it's fine. 5 supervisors should get together, and we should battle it out on what the best project is for the amount of money that we have. I want to see if the citizens of Roanoke County actually realize that every year we spend $8 million in interest payments alone. And you know what? That's not going to go away anytime soon. Interest rates are very low right now. As interest rates start to climb and we continue borrowing money at this pace, it may even be more. So right now, we pay, not debt service, just the interest. Just the interest, we pay $8 million a year. Now think about this carefully. Roanoke County currently has a debt, $190 million, that's larger than its revenues. We bring in about $175 million or so in revenues. I've heard the same old argument that Roanoke County debt is like a mortgage payment. Well, that's not true. Roanoke County is over 170 years old. Our county is. We've gotten rid of our mortgage payment. We don't have a mortgage payment anymore. Basically, the things we pay and spend money on are things that we want to. Hey, they're great things. School buildings, maybe the Green Ridge Center, different facilities that we do. Those are the kinds of things that we spend money on. Okay? And those are things that maybe some people want, maybe some people don't want. But it's basically things that we could do without. We don't have to spend $30 million on a school. We could spend maybe $15 million. All right? So these are things that we could spend money or that we don't have to spend money on. So some of them, like I said, are very worthwhile. But the question then becomes, should we be on automatic pilot with borrowing money, or should we have a more disciplined approach? Imagine if the debt you had personally on your car, education loans, credit cards, equaled your income. You would be in a difficult situation. And I think there are a lot of people that are in that situation, and it makes their life very difficult. Imagine if every year you always borrowed money, just like Roanoke County does. Every year you always borrowed money, and you used borrowed money to do projects that you wanted to do, instead of just paying for it by cash. Why not think differently and put money away each year that will then be used for those projects at a later date without borrowing money? And I've heard the old story, too, that costs are going to go up every year. Well, put the money away in some type of savings-bearing account, and you'll get savings off of that as costs may be increased. Maybe they won't. But that's the way to do it. Put the money aside now for projects you want in the future. Now let's talk about spending. We have gone back and forth on how much more we will actually be spending in this fiscal year, 2015-16, compared to our current budget. The budget itself says on page 81 of the budget, you can go up to the website, Roanoke County website, that we are going to spend $4.7 million net more this fiscal year than we did last year. In reality, also on page 80, it says that we have additional expenditures of $8.5 million, and we're going to balance that off with expenditure reductions of about a little over $3 million, and that's how we get to that 4.7 net number. But the reality is that we're going to spend $8 million. We have found additional $8 million more spending. Luckily, we're going to offset it by some expenditure reductions. Now, some people argue that in that number of $8 million, there are some monies that come through this state and pass through. About $1.8 million is that, plus a couple incentive programs that we have. So I will remove those for the sake of this argument. So we're still down to about $7 million in additional spending. Now, the problem is when you look at the reduction in expenditures that we were using to offset that, there's a one-line item that says we are going to reduce spending next year by $1 million in a particular category. And I want to talk to you about this specific category because I think it's deceiving. I told you before that we're not going to borrow $10 million next year. All right, so what we've said now is since we're not going to borrow $10 million, we're going to save $1 million next year because that would have been our debt service on that $10 million. Now, let me just put this in perspective. If I tell you that I'm going to buy a $50,000 car next year, and then I decide, well, let's see, the payments are $1,000 a month. I decide not to do it, and I tell you that I just saved $1,000. That would be ridiculous. That's not a savings. That's not real savings. It's anticipated spending, so you're not going to do it and you save. So I think we're being a little deceptive to the people of Roanoke County when we're telling them that we're saving all this money. We are actually reducing the amount of money that we're spending, and we're calling that a savings, and I don't think that's true. All right. And you know, the thing that really bothers me is that's very much like what the federal government does. The federal government will tell you they're cutting spending because they're reducing the increase of spending. If they were going to spend 5% more, and now they're going to spend 4% more, they tell you they've cut the budget by 20%. Very deceptive, and we should not be doing that in Roanoke County. All right. I'm getting ahead of myself. All right, let's look next at county employee raises. And this becomes a very sensitive topic, but I think we need to put everything on the table. We are giving county employees a 2.5% raise. All right. Now think about this. Our county administrator, and it's really not his fault, but now he's part of this, gets $177,000 a year. That's his salary. I voted against having him employed because I thought that money was much too much. Now he's going to get $4,500 raise. And he's been here for 4 months. So now his salary would be $182,000. What about just giving every employee $1,000? Okay, by doing the 2.5% raise and then doing all these other things, we're going to spend $1.8 million more for employee salaries. And some at the low end that are maybe making $30,000 may get a $600 or $700 raise. I say give everybody a $1,000 raise and call it a day. If it's truly a cost of living kind of issue, give everybody the same amount. We will save about $800,000 to $900,000 if we did that. And everybody would get the equal amount of money across the board. That's one way to save some money. I'm willing to compromise on this issue. As I started my speech, I said that we've been trying to give citizens back some of their own money by a real estate tax decrease. We haven't been able to do that. For the last 2 years, we've been trying. We're always told that there's not room in the budget for it. But now, as I just stated, over the last 2 years, because last year we gave employees, again, a $1.7 million raise. This year, it's budgeted for another $1.7, $1.8 million. That's a total of $3.5 million raise. We can't even compromise and come into the middle and say, give the citizens some money and give county employee money. All the money goes to the county employees. And you know what? I love people getting raises. I love people being able to do more things than they did last year. I think it's great. It's the American system. It's free markets. But when we're always denying our own citizens the right to get some of their money back, I think that's a problem. Yep. Now, one of the arguments that there is, you know what, if you don't keep raising employee salaries, you're going to lose them. They're going to move to another county. They're going to go work somewhere else. Well, what about the citizens that we start losing when we keep their salaries high, their taxes high? Many are leaving. Many are going to lower tax areas, and you can't blame them because they have more buying power, all right, if they don't have higher taxes. Now, one thing that I was amazed at, too, when I joined the board is that cost of living is not considered a raise. So if somebody got a 2% cost of living increase, we never really talked about that as if they were getting a raise. Well, I work in the free market. And the free market, if you get a 1%, whatever you want to call it, it's a raise, okay? If you get more money than you did last year, it's a raise. We don't divide it up. In the free market, you don't always get a 2% to keep up with the rate of inflation or cost of living. You get a raise. When you get a raise, that's it. So I just want to say that sometimes the terminology in county government is much different than it is in the free market. County employees have either been getting bonuses or some kind of cost of living for actually, I think, 4 or 5 of the last 7 years. And they do fairly well. I think the average salary we said for a Roanoke County employee at our last meeting was somewhere in the neighborhood of the high $40,000. I think it was $48,000. Not bad. A nice benefits package at the end. And I'm not demeaning it. I think everybody, like I said, should have good jobs and work well. But don't say that we're not making enough money because the private sector also deals with this. Now let's talk about a very sensitive subject, and that's the school budget. The schools have received $1.7 million more over the last 2 years, and their enrollment has been decreasing over the last 8 years. I voted against the plan that we currently have in place, which sets how much money should be given to the schools, because it basically was based on revenues. But my thoughts are, if enrollment is going down, no matter how much revenue we're getting in the county, why should we always be giving more money to the schools? Why can't the schools learn, like every other organization, that we have to find efficiencies and we have to find ways to streamline? Now, I know that it'll always be stated that Al Bedrosian must not be for education, which is an interesting thing to say since I have 5 children and they're getting educated. Now, we've desired an alternative education in homeschooling, but still the fact is that I love education. I think it's the greatest thing. But what are we teaching our children when we don't spend money correctly? And basically, we're putting their generation in debt for the things that we're doing now. And I want to make a point about that. I've always heard that, hey, Al, we have to spend money. We have to go into debt. We have to do these things because we're doing it for the next generation. It's not just our generation, it's the next generation. Well, how about doing it and not giving them the debt? How about just doing it with the money that we have today? Who would ever give their child and say, hey, here's a gift of a car, and by the way, here's the book to make the payments? Nobody would do that. It's not the right thing. Give a gift, give it. Give it completely. Let's save up some money and give a gift to the next generation. I have no problem with that. Finally, I want to talk about spending money on non-county agencies. We do that every year. Okay, whether it's the Commonwealth Games that are coming up, whether it may be some very needy organization, we do it every year. And I think we need to get out of that business. That's not the business of government. Right now, we got about $1.7 million going to non-county agencies. About 115,000 of those are contracted ones, contractual agreements. We have to do those. But that leaves about 1.6 million left that we can say no to. Now, it may be a difficult situation, but we could say no. Here's my proposal. Don't say no right away. Take 10%, 15% a year for the next 5 years, and let them know we're going out of business there. So this year you're going to get 80%, next year you're going to get 60, 40, 20, and we're out. That's the way to do it, right? Slowly get them off the fact that they're going to be getting money every year from the county. We're not in that business. We have other things that we need to do. Now, as I kind of wrap up here, I want to bring something down to a family level. Every $1 million that Roanoke County spends, if you take that and you divide it by 90,000 citizens, you get about $11, okay, for every citizen. So basically, if you took a family of 4 or 5, it's roughly $50, okay? That 11 times 4 or 5, it's $50. That means that every time we spend $1 million in the county, we're removing $50 from an average family. Okay, and maybe, well, that's not bad, $50. But times it now by 180, because we're doing a $180 million budget. That means that we're all, every citizen now, is chipping in about $1,900 for this government. So a family of 5 is chipping in about 10 grand for our government. So, could I do better with my own $10,000, or is the government doing better? Now, this is a question I think we all have to ask, because every year when we find that we have a little less money in our pocket, it's because government is taking it. When we get ready to spend $5 million more this year, we're basically removing an additional $250 from an average family of 4 or 5. That's basically what we're doing. So an average family in Roanoke County, when this budget passes, if it does the way it does, will kind of have less, $250 less in their pocket. Now, because government doesn't make money, right? We don't print it, not here in the county. We don't print money. We don't make it. We don't have a business. We take it from the citizens. All right, so that's the way it is, $150. $250 more for every citizen. All right, let me close here. I hope this debate continues about how we spend money. How we spend money, whether it's on schools, whether it's on salaries, whether it's on whatever in the county, that we look at that and we have a debate about it, whether we think it's the right thing to do. When I was elected supervisor of Roanoke County in the Hollins District, I said that I represented the people and I was looking after their interests. And we have to have a balance between supervisors and the county. We need to oversee the county. We can't just vote yes for everything the county administrator or the county administration wants to do. We have to be the checks and balance. And I would prefer that when we do a budget, that we actually say, either you had a budget of $174 million last year, that's all we've got to spend this year. We don't do it like that. Or we go down to 0 and we say, let's build the budget up. Maybe we don't even need $174 million. Maybe not. But what we do is every year we just go up, 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 up. We keep increasing the budget. And I think we cannot do that or we're going to be in trouble. So I'd like to close with that. We got 3 weeks before we vote on this in the county. Citizens, you got to be awake. You got to realize what's going on. Write to your supervisors, call your supervisors, come over to the county administration office, challenge us. Make the county supervisors accountable to the money that we spend. It is your money. All right, I'll take any questions anybody has on the budget or debt spending, or I can take questions off the air.